In the ancient world, medicine was not just medicine, it was belief. Which metal was once considered a miracle and is still used today? Which metal was feared so deeply that women were banned from bathing in its waters, afraid it could change life itself? Which substance, officially a poison, saved the life of King Louis XIV of France? Did you know there was once drinkable gold swallowed not for wealth, but for survival? Which metals were linked to the sun, the moon, and Jupiter, believed to rule the human body through the heavens? Doctors once believed that plunging a glowing metal into wine could turn it into medicine. In the history of medicine, authority, experience, and faith often outweighed scientific proof. From gold and silver to tin and zinc, these metals didn't just shape alchemy, they changed medicine forever. If you're looking for the forgotten stories behind these cures, stay with us. To medieval alchemists, metals were not separate beings, but variations of a single hidden substance. What appeared to be difference was, in their view, merely surface, form shaped by circumstance. Beneath lead, copper, iron, and silver lay the same essence, altered only by accidental disturbances in nature's process. Sulfur and mercury were believed to be the true parents of all metals, endlessly recombining in imperfect ways. When the balance was pure, they believed nature itself would eventually yield gold. Here lies the confidence of the age. Transformation was not only possible, it was inevitable, given enough patience and insight. Species, they argued, could not change into one another, but metals were no species at all. They were stages. To the medieval mind, lead was not inferior, it was unfinished. To us, this belief sounds like poetic error. We know metals are elements, not moral or spiritual processes. And yet the impulse behind the idea remains familiar. Humans still search for a hidden shortcut, a universal substance, a single rule beneath complexity. Then as now, certainty felt closer when nature appeared orderly. Albertus Magnus did not describe chemistry as it is, but as humanity wished it to be. Intelligible, purposeful, and obedient to understanding. The metal did not change. The hope did. Antimony. Among the metals believed to carry medicinal power, antimony occupied a strange and contested place. Later writers insisted that even Hippocrates had known it, disguising it under the name tetragonon, a word meaning four-cornered. They imagined this compound mixed with human milk, mysterious and deliberate. But the logic used to justify this claim reveals more about medieval interpretation than ancient medicine. Iatrochemists believed tetragonon referred not to shape but to virtue. Antimony, they said, possessed four powers. It induced sweat, provoked vomiting, purged the bowels, and strengthened the heart. Four effects, four corners, therefore, antimony. This kind of reasoning felt persuasive in an age enamored with symbolic correspondence. Yet Hippocrates himself avoided such riddling names. What later physicians projected backward was not knowledge, but desire, to anchor new remedies in ancient authority. What they didn't realize was that naming something does not make it true. Today we recognize this pattern easily. We still search for legitimacy by invoking the past, even when the connection is imagined. Then as now, explanation often followed belief rather than evidence. The remedy was uncertain. The justification was not. The etymology of antimony. Few substances carry stories as dark as their supposed origins. One enduring legend claimed that Basil Valentine tested antimony on his fellow monks, with fatal results. From this tale emerged the dramatic interpretation of the word antimonachos, monk's bane. The story satisfied the ear, if not the facts. Another version softened the cruelty but kept the warning. Valentine, it was said, discarded antimony compounds from his window. Pigs consumed them, purged violently, then grew fat. Encouraged by this result, he administered the same remedy to fasting monks, who did not survive the treatment. The lesson seemed clear: what strengthens beasts may destroy men. But these stories collapse under scrutiny. They appear to be clever wordplay, likely French in origin, shaped to fit the sound of antimony. Littré dismantled the myth entirely by locating the word centuries earlier in the writings of Constantine the African. long before Basil Valentine could have lived. Other explanations followed, each speculative. That antimony was antimonos, because it was never found alone, antimonane for its tonic effect, or antimonium because it replaced red lead in cosmetics. None carried proof. What survives is not certainty, but imagination. Humans have always preferred a vivid story to a dull truth. Even language itself becomes a stage for moral warning. The word endured. The legend faded. Alcohol. Long before antimony was swallowed, it was worn. Known to the ancients as stibium or stimi, it darkened eyelids across the East. Women applied it with slender rods of silver or ivory, drawing fine black lines between the lids. Beauty and mineral met without apology. Scripture preserves the image. Jezebel, awaiting Jehu, painted her eyes. The Hebrew word thuf, and later kohl, was translated by the Septuagint as stimi. The practice endured. Arabic women still call the powder ismid, applying it in the same deliberate motion. Names carried meaning. Karen Hapuk, one of Job's daughters, was named for a vessel of antimony. The Book of Enoch went further, claiming the fallen angel Azazel taught women the art before the flood, linking cosmetics to forbidden knowledge. Metals, weapons, ornamentation, and beauty were bound together as forces that reshaped the world. Early Christian voices condemned the practice. Tertullian warned believers not to anoint their eyes with the antimony of the devil, but with the healing salve of Christ. Vanity had become a theological crime. Seen now, the fear feels exaggerated, yet the anxiety remains recognizable. Every era worries that beauty conceals corruption, that adornment masks danger. Alchemical hopes of antimony. Among all metals, antimony inspired an intensity that bordered on obsession. Alchemists and early chemical physicians believed it stood at the threshold of a universal cure. As Fourcroy later observed, they tormented it in every possible manner, convinced that persistence alone would unlock its secret. This was not experimentation as we understand it today, it was interrogation. What fueled their hope was antimony's behavior. It readily merged with other metals, dissolving boundaries that seemed otherwise fixed. To alchemists, this was not chemistry but prophecy. They named it lupus metallorum, the wolf of metals, because it devoured its companions. If any substance could guide base matter toward gold, surely this was it. Their most ambitious goal was the creation of the powder of projection. From fragments of cryptic instructions, we can trace their belief-driven method. Crude antimony, fused with iron, surrendered its sulfur. What remained was named the Marshal Regulus of antimony, a little king, suggesting imperfect gold. Step by step, through corrosive sublimate, silver, and repeated sublimations, they chased purification through repetition. The final act bordered on ritual. The refined substance was sealed in a glass vessel, the philosophic egg, and kept gently heated for months. Time itself became an ingredient. When the material reddened into powder, the alchemists believed the transformation was complete. Cast upon molten metals, mixed with mercury, it was said to yield gold. We know now that no gold was born. But the patience, discipline, and faith remain remarkable. They believed transformation required endurance, enclosure, and time, lessons that still echo beyond the furnace. Antimonial compounds. Not every pursuit aimed at gold. Alongside transmutation ran a parallel ambition: medicine. By heat, fusion, and accident, early experimenters produced a bewildering array of antimonial substances. Sometimes crude antimony fused with the silica of its crucible, forming a glassy mass, glass of antimony, part oxide, part sulfide. Other times, darker products emerged, richer in sulfur, known as liver of antimony or crocus metallorum, the saffron of metals. These substances were not curiosities, they were administered. Digested in Rhine wine, they produced antimonial wine, its composition as unpredictable as the methods that created it. Later, physicians replaced these unstable mixtures with emetic tartar, trading mystery for consistency. From flames and vapors came Argentine flowers of antimony, crystalline protoxides condensed from volatilized metal. Acids transformed regulus into mineral bezoar. Fusions with nitre produced diaphoretic antimony, intended to provoke sweat. Distillation with corrosive sublimate yielded the infamous butter of antimony, thick and soft, and dangerous. Water added to this butter produced a white precipitate. Algaroth's powder, also called the mercury of life, though it contained none. Its inventor, Victor Algarotti of Verona, gained fame and enemies. Legend claimed rivals poisoned him for the success of his remedy. Whether true or not, it reflects the stakes of medical innovation in that age. To us, the list feels excessive. To them, it felt necessary. Each variation promised control over the body's rebellion. Kermes mineral. Among all antimonial preparations, none achieved greater fame than Kermes mineral. Invented by Glauber around 1651, it emerged not from chance but controlled reaction. Oxide of antimony treated with cream of tartar, then infused with sulfuretted hydrogen. The result was an orange-red powder, visually striking and therapeutically celebrated. Cures followed, or were believed to. Glauber guarded his process closely. Only after his death did the formula travel, passing from pupil to physician, from surgeon to monk. Brother Simon of the Carthusian order used it first on his fellow monks, then beyond monastery walls. Soon it was known in France as poudre de Chartres, prescribed for diseases ranging from smallpox to syphilis. Its reputation reached the highest level. In 1720, Louis XIV purchased the formula for a considerable sum, converting secret knowledge into royal property. Later chemical analysis stripped away the mystique. Kermes mineral was a mixture, oxide, hydrated sulfide, and traces of alkali salts. Effective, perhaps, but not miraculous. From its residue came yet another remedy. The golden sulfuret of antimony, paired with calomel to form plumber's powder. What began as alchemical secrecy ended as pharmaceutical routine. The flood of antimonial medicines, official and quack alike, became overwhelming. Most faded. One endured, emetic tartar, the tartrate of antimony and potassium, retained by medicine long after alchemy fell silent. What survives is not the dream of gold, but the discipline of refinement. Emetic tartar. The name most often attached to emetic tartar is Adrian Meinsicht, physician to the Duke of Mecklenburg in the early 17th century. His Thesaurus Medico-Chemicum of 1631 offers the earliest clear description of the substance, and for that reason he is usually credited with its invention. Yet even at its birth, the medicine carried a past. Hofer later observed that a preparation known as the Earl of Warwick's powder, described in 1620 by Cornacinus of Pisa, already contained the essential components: scammony, diaphoretic antimony, and cream of tartar. The salt, he argued, had entered medical awareness before Minsicht ever set it to paper. In other words, discovery followed practice, not the other way around. By 1648, Glauber had refined the process further, showing how Meinsicht's emetic tartar could be prepared directly from cream of tartar and the Argentine flowers of antimony. What had once been an uncertain mixture was becoming a reproducible substance. From a modern perspective, this moment marks a quiet turning point. Alchemical intuition was giving way, slowly, to chemical method. Authority still mattered, but repetition. Antimony controversy. Few medicines have provoked such hostility and such devotion as antimony. Its fiercest opponents were the faculty of physicians of Paris, whose resistance did more to spread its fame than any advocate could have done. Tradition long claimed that Parliament had banned antimony outright. The truth, as later documents revealed, was more restrained. In 1566, the faculty forbade its own licentiates from using antimony and expelled one of their most capable members, Torquet de Mayerne, for defying the rule. Parliament's decree went no further than insisting that antimony be dispensed only on the order of a qualified physician. Yet the symbolism was enough. A line had been drawn between tradition and experiment. That line collapsed in 1657. When the 19-year-old Louis XIV fell gravely ill at Calais, a physician from Abbeville dared to administer emetic tartar. The king recovered. Court and country were convinced that antimony had saved him. Opposition fell silent, not persuaded, but defeated. Guy Patin, among the most vocal critics, refused surrender. He mocked the drug as tartrestigi, and argued that the king's recovery owed nothing to poison and everything to royal constitution. But medicine follows success more readily than logic. Seen now, the controversy feels excessive, yet it reveals something enduring. Once a treatment becomes political, evidence alone is never enough. The medicine did not change. Authority did. Antimony cups, pacula emetica. In homes and monasteries of the 16th and 17th centuries, antimony entered daily life through objects rather than prescriptions. Antimony cups, pacula emetica, were made from alloys of tin and antimony. Wine left standing in them absorbed emetic properties as the tartar of the wine reacted with a thin film of antimony oxide lining the cup. These vessels were common in Germany and familiar enough to be household tools. In monasteries, they acquired a disciplinary role. Monks who drank too freely were punished by being made to drink more from the antimony cup. Excess corrected excess. By the late 17th century, their use was fading. Dr. Walter Harris noted in 1683 that such cups were already rare. But the belief persisted that antimony could impart medicinal force without losing substance, a notion bordering on magical economy. Angelo Sala tells of a German practitioner who rented out a piece of glass of antimony. Patients immersed it in wine for hours, drank the result, and returned the stone, paying not in coin, but in eggs. Medicine had become reusable. To us, these practices seem naive. Yet they reveal a longing for control without consumption, cure without depletion. If you enjoy exploring forgotten knowledge, you may like and subscribe. Bismuth. Bismuth arrived late to medical history. Unknown to the ancients and the Arabs, it first appeared in writing in 1546, when Agricola mentioned it without recognizing it as a distinct metal. For decades, it was mistaken for lead, or imagined to mature slowly into silver. Its compounds entered cosmetics before medicine. Lemery's Blanc de Fard, a magistery of bismuth, sold in enormous quantities. Prepared by dissolving the metal in nitric acid and precipitating it with salted water, it produced a soft white powder used in pomatums and lotions. Beauty came first, safety came later. Internally, bismuth was feared. Even Odier of Geneva, who introduced it for digestive disorders, prescribed it cautiously, buffered with magnesia and sugar. Writers of the 18th century still believed bismuth to be artificial, an alloy born of tin, tartar, and arsenic. Only through the work of Stahl and Dufay was its elemental nature established. From that clarity came pharmaceutical refinement. Solutions were introduced, corrected, and eventually abandoned in favor of insoluble forms, on the belief that bismuth healed best by staying where it was placed. From cosmetic secret to cautious remedy, bismuth followed the long path from illusion to understanding. The metal was always itself. Knowledge took time. Gold. For gold in physic is a cordial. Therefore he loved gold in special. So wrote Chaucer of the physician who trusted in precious substances, and few materials inspired more devotion than gold. Yet in the medical writings of antiquity, gold appears only rarely. The Egyptians may have applied gold leaf to abrasions of the skin. Fragments found upon mummies suggest as much, but its role was symbolic as much as therapeutic. Arab alchemists, among them Geber, hinted at elixirs of life drawn from gold, though their descriptions dissolve into riddles before becoming instructions. Avicenna placed gold among the purifiers of the blood, and Eastern pharmacists introduced the gilding of pills, likely in the belief that the metal itself enhanced their power. It was only with the rise of chemical medicine in Europe that gold truly entered its age of promise. Arnold of Villanova and Raymond Lully praised its virtues, though voices like Brassavolas and Fallopius doubted them. With Paracelsus, doubt retreated. Gold was exalted beyond measure, though what precisely counted as gold in these preparations is difficult to say. To Paracelsus and his followers, gold required transformation before it could heal. The aurum potabile demanded labor. The salt must be separated from the fixed sulfur, the seed of gold, the principle of its life. This seed, once freed, was believed capable of curing all disease and extending life without limit. Gold was no longer metal, it was solar essence made drinkable. Paracelsus prescribed it to purify blood, counter poison, prevent miscarriage, and even, placed in the mouth of a newborn, bar the devil himself. He ranked it less cordial than emeralds, yet greater than silver, and tied its power to the heart, the organ ruled by the sun. Gold's champions multiplied. Sala, Saxons, and especially Thurnisson, turned the metal into spectacle and fortune. Thurnisson's mastery of the sun filled laboratories and coffers alike, until reputation collapsed, and he died poor. Gold had not changed, belief had. The metal endured. Faith did the work. Aurum potabile. Roger Bacon believed potable gold to be the true elixir of life. He told Pope Nicholas IV of an old Sicilian farmer who discovered a golden phial while plowing. Mistaking its contents for dew, he drank, and was transformed into a youthful, vigorous man who served the Sicilian court for 80 years. Whether legend or parable, the message was clear. Gold could renew time itself. In England, Francis Anthony made this promise profitable. His aurum potabile, sold during the reigns of Elizabeth and James I, was said to cure nearly everything: fevers, fluxes, plague, palsy. The College of Physicians fined and imprisoned him, yet aristocratic patrons shielded his trade. Even Robert Boyle, skeptical by nature, admitted witnessing remarkable cures. He hinted that Anthony's preparation involved gold and a single ingredient from above, among the simplest substances in nature. The mystery only deepened belief. Opposition sharpened the spectacle. Pamphlets attacked Anthony. He replied in kind. At last, he offered to demonstrate his process before unbiased witnesses, including the master of the mint. Critics claimed failure. Sales continued. A manuscript attributed to Anthony later revealed the supposed method: vinegar distilled to strength, block tin burned to ash, gold opened by salt and heat, digested and evaporated, then dissolved in spirit of wine. No true solution of gold could result, but conviction did not depend on chemistry. Glauber, writing in 1650, dismissed skeptics as ignorant of the generation of metals. Gold, he insisted, was born of the sun's rays. His own process, unintelligible and ceremonial, produced colors, stenches, and finally a red tincture, the quickening essence, second only to the philosopher's stone. Others followed: Digby, Lemery, Lecoq. Gold was calcined, distilled, perfumed, dissolved, revived, abandoned, revived again. By the 19th century, clinical trials extinguished its last medical claims. What remained was a lesson. There were honest seekers and many deceivers, yet all were united by the same hope, that perfection itself could be swallowed. Gold promised eternity. The body answered with silence. Aurum fulminans. Aurum fulminans entered medical history through the writings attributed to Basil Valentine, and later through Oswald Crollius, where it was also called volatile gold. Unlike the symbolic or mystical uses of gold, this preparation was sharply practical, and dangerously so. Valentine described its manufacture with unusual clarity. Gold leaf dissolved in aqua regia, then precipitated with salt of tartar into a substance of startling instability. Attempts were made to tame it. Vinegar or sulfur was applied to reduce its violent nature, transforming an explosive compound into something believed to retain gold's medicinal essence without its fury. In theory, aurum fulminans concentrated the healing virtues of gold in their purest form. It was praised especially as a diaphoretic, a substance meant to drive illness from the body through sweat. Reality proved less accommodating. Reports speak of severe diarrhea following its use, and there is little doubt that it was often lethal. The medicine acted swiftly, but not selectively. In parallel, another golden remedy circulated under a misleading name. It was an amalgam of mercury and tin, ground with sulfur and sal ammoniac, its brilliance masking its danger. Mosaic gold, administered to children suffering convulsions, contained no gold at all. Later centuries did not abandon gold's promise. Hahnemann insisted on its powerful curative action, and homeopathic physicians continued to praise it. Dr. J.C. Burnett, writing in Gold as a Remedy, recommended triturations of gold leaf diluted to 1 part in a million, proclaiming it a remarkable heart tonic, particularly for breathlessness in old age. The substance had vanished, the belief remained. When gold was made volatile, certainty. Iron. To the ancients, iron was not a noble remedy. Its rare appearances in early medical lore were treated as marvels rather than methods. The rust of iron, said to have been administered by Melampus, was regarded as miraculous, not reproducible. Homer's tale of the rust of Telephus's spear, healing the wound it caused, belongs more to myth than to surgery. Hippocrates ignored iron entirely, but Dioscorides noticed its astringent power and recommended it for uterine hemorrhage, even claiming it could prevent conception, a belief later reversed. Alongside Celsus and Pliny, he recorded a curious practice: plunging red-hot iron into wine or water to produce remedies for dysentery, weak digestion, or enlarged spleen. Heat, metal, and liquid merged into medicine. Later Latin physicians made little progress. Oribasius and Aetius applied iron oxide externally to ulcers, while Alexander of Tralles prescribed both infusion and metal itself for splenic disease, perhaps the first to recognize its deobstruent effect. Arab physicians advanced cautiously. Rhazes used iron freely. Avicenna warned against it, suggesting magnet stone as an antidote if iron had been taken by mistake. For centuries, vitriol, sulfates of iron and copper, dominated practice, though rarely with the intention of supplying iron itself. Paracelsus trusted his Arcanum vitrioli, likely sulfur, and introduced the magnet as a therapeutic instrument, though only externally. True iron therapy emerged only in the century after him, when the salts of Mars gained authority. By the 17th and 18th centuries, iron preparations multiplied endlessly. Filings softened in alcohol, Crocus martis, Ethiops martial, Flores martis, each reflected a different theory of action. The planetary association with Mars shaped their reputation as tonics, especially for anemic and chlorotic conditions. Their benefit was undeniable long before physiology understood iron's role in blood. Modern science complicated the picture. Iron in the body proved constant in quantity, derived from food, not medicine. Whether medicinal iron was absorbed at all became doubtful. Kletsinski declared that centuries of iron dosing had not produced a single blood corpuscle, yet physicians continued to see patients revive under its use. Sydenham and Willis anchored iron firmly in practice. Sydenham described how it quickened the pulse and restored color, preferring filings over chemical preparations. Willis guarded a secret method of opening iron gently, without violent chemistry. Others sought mechanical explanations: iron particles, heavier than blood, striking through obstructions by sheer momentum. These ideas endured. Tartarized iron became a favorite, culminating in the elaborate balls of Mars, still used in France. Combinations like mistura ferri composita survived chemical criticism because they worked. Faith in iron waters was so strong that legends warned of excessive fertility from their use. In the 19th century, iron entered modern pharmacy. Tinctures, reduced iron, citrates, phosphates, iodides, each reflected growing chemical precision. Queven's reduced iron promised purity and assimilation, though later shown to be imperfect. Syrups and solutions followed, each generation refining the metal's form, if not fully its mystery. Iron moved from myth to medicine, from symbol to supplement, without ever losing its paradox. A remedy whose effect is proven, but whose mechanism lead. Lead belongs to the oldest family of metals known to humanity, and in classical thought it was placed under the dominion of Saturn, slow, heavy, and cold. Ancient medicine made use chiefly of its compounds rather than the metal itself. White lead, or ceruse, a carbonate mixed with hydrate, and litharge, the oxide, were the principal forms employed. Ceruse likely took its name from cera, wax, in reference to its texture, while litharge, derived from Greek, meaning silver stone, was believed to be the residue or scum left behind in the refining of silver. Red lead, or minium, also found limited application, chiefly in ointments. Although modern medicine has almost entirely abandoned lead for internal use, physicians for centuries experimented with it, often guided by its perceived sedative power. What remains today is little more than a historical trace, such as paula plombi cum opio. Galen recommended lead in conditions as grave as leprosy and plague, and in a practice that now seems extraordinary. Small lead pellets were once administered for twisted bowels. Its calming effect led to prescriptions for neuralgia, hysteria, and convulsive coughs. Goulard, recognizing the astringent and anticatarrhal action of lead acetate, promoted it in urethritis, while French physicians briefly entertained the notion that lead poisoning and tuberculosis were mutually exclusive, hoping to turn toxicity into cure. Externally, lead enjoyed a far longer and more influential career. Litharge formed the foundation of countless plasters, so many that a century or two ago nearly 100 varieties were either official or in common use. Differences in color, lithargirum auri or argenti, were not matters of substance, but of heat applied during preparation. White lead featured prominently in celebrated ointments. Mezu's unguentum tripharmacum, Galen's ceratum lithargiri, the unguentum nutritum, and unguentum deapomphilogos, where it was combined with zinc oxide. Many of these preparations fell out of favor after Goulard introduced his unguentum saturninum, but others endured. Rhazes devised an ointment of white lead, wax, and camphor dissolved in oil of roses, at first fortified with egg white, later omitted due to its unpleasant odor. In France, the famed onguent de la mer became widely known. Created empirically by Sister Thécle of the Hôtel Dieu, it was prepared by heating animal fats until vapors arose, then sifting in powdered litharge, producing violent effervescence. Wax and black pitch completed the mixture. Later chemical study revealed the formation of fatty acids and acrolein, and confirmed the process to be hazardous, especially near open flame. Internally, lead reappeared in more elaborate forms. The Magistery of Saturn, a white lid precipitate from acetate, was the central ingredient in Meinsich's powder of Saturn. This complex mixture, prescribed for phthisis and asthma, combined sulfur preparations, botanical roots, minerals, resins, spices, and sweeteners, embodying the era's belief that balance could be restored by accumulation. Above all others, it was Goulard who championed lead as medicine. His acetate solution became so closely identified with his name that both outlived their time. His work marks the final moment when Saturn's metal stood confidently at the bedside, rather than being recognized as a silent poison. Lead promised calm, but delivered its lessons slowly. Quicksilver. Quicksilver enters recorded history through Greek philosophy, first noted by Theophrastus around 315 BC, yet its medicinal use long predates Greek science. In China and India it was already familiar, and Egyptian knowledge of the metal seems more than probable. Dioscorides named it hydrargyrum, fluid silver, while Pliny warned that it was a dangerous poison. Galen accepted this view but admitted he had never observed its effects directly. Early writers distinguished between native quicksilver, argentum vivum, and mercury extracted from cinnabar, believing them to be separate substances. The name Mercury, and its planetary symbolism, belong to the Middle Ages. Stephanus of Alexandria first linked the metal to the planet in the 7th century, transforming a fluid curiosity into an astrological substance of profound significance. The Arab physicians inherited Greek learning and expanded it. In the writings attributed to Geber, mercury appears not only as a metal, but in powerful compounds, red precipitate, and corrosive sublimate. Mezu prescribed mercurial ointments for skin diseases, and Avicenna cautiously challenged the belief that mercury was always poisonous. He observed that many who swallowed it suffered no harm, noting that it passed unchanged through the body. By the 16th century, mercury was being prescribed internally. Shepherds were said to dose livestock with it to expel worms. Brassavolis administered it to children. Mattheolus reported astonishing cases in which women ingested enormous quantities without apparent injury, whether exaggeration or observation. These stories reinforced the belief that mercury was both dangerous and miraculous. The Arab physicians inherited Greek learning and expanded it. In the writings attributed to Geber, mercury appears not only as a metal, but in powerful compounds, red precipitate, and corrosive sublimate. Mezu prescribed mercurial ointments for skin diseases, and Avicenna cautiously challenged the belief that mercury was always poisonous. He observed that many who swallowed it suffered no harm, noting that it passed unchanged through the body. By the 16th century, mercury was being prescribed internally. Shepherds were said to dose livestock with it to expel worms. Brassavolis administered it to children. Mattheolus reported astonishing cases in which women ingested enormous quantities without apparent injury, whether exaggeration or observation. These stories reinforced the belief that mercury was both dangerous and miraculous. John de Vigo's plaster became legendary. Emplastrum Vigonium, revered for centuries, combined mercury with an astonishing catalogue of animal, vegetal, and mineral substances. Frogs, worms, animal fats, resins, oils, wax, and finally extinguished mercury were fused into a compound believed to embody perfect balance. Though later simplified, Vigo's plaster survived into modern pharmacopoeias. Mercurial pills followed. The earliest known formula was sent by Barbarossa II, pirate king and Ottoman admiral, to Francis I of France. Later refined by Bellost, these pills became standard therapy. Mercury killed with honey formed the core, proof that gentling the metal was as important as using it. As syphilis swept Europe, fear drove experimentation. Mercury joined guaiacum and sarsaparilla in the therapeutic arsenal. Corrosive sublimate dominated treatment for over a century, often hidden within vegetable syrups. Van Sweeten's solution epitomized state-sanctioned mercury therapy, while clandestine remedies like Rob Boivot Lafacteur provoked controversy and courtroom debate. Chemistry gradually stripped away mystery. Red precipitate, turbith mineral, sal alembroth, calomel. Each gained and lost reputations as physicians struggled to balance efficacy and danger. Calomel, the dulcified mercury, became the mildest and most enduring form, its name itself a puzzle of alchemical imagination. The art of killing mercury obsessed pharmacists for centuries. Oils, sulfur, saliva, fats, acids. Every method aimed to divide the metal so finely that it lost its fury while retaining power. Though theory remains unsettled, practice proved one thing: the more perfectly mercury was subdued, the more predictable its effect. Mercury cured by being conquered, and poisoned by being trusted. Silver. Under the doctrine of macrocosm and microcosm, the moon ruled the head. Silver, as Luna's metal, was therefore destined to heal the brain. Epilepsy, melancholy, vertigo, memory loss, all were entrusted to silver's influence. Tales circulated of artisans gifted with prodigious memory through lifelong exposure to the metal. Greek and Roman physicians ignored silver as medicine, but Avicenna introduced it internally, and perhaps first silvered pills to enhance virtue. Medieval chemical physicians embraced the lunar logic. Tinctura luna and lunar pills flourished, prescribed by authorities as eminent as Boyle and Boerhaave. Gradually enthusiasm faded. Nitrate and chloride of silver were repeatedly rediscovered, yet never secured permanent favor. Only lunar caustic endured, feared and respected as lapis infernalis. Silver shone brightest in theory, dimmest in cure. Tin. Tin entered medicine as a destroyer of worms. Its reputation as a vermifuge rivaled mercury's. Alchemists treasured mosaic gold, aurum musivum, a brilliant bisulfide mistaken for transmuted splendor and prescribed for fevers and venereal disease. Later preparations, calx jovis, sal jovis, and tin amalgams gave way to simple filings mixed with honey or treacle. Doses escalated until Dr. Alston recommended ounces rather than grains. Tin lingered in compound powders and ointments before quietly retreating from internal medicine. Tin promised strength through quantity, not subtlety. Zinc. Zinc emerged late and strangely. Paracelsus recognized it as a distinct metal, fluid yet unmalleable, mysterious as mercury. Though brass and calamine were ancient, metallic zinc appeared only in the Renaissance. Chemists debated its nature endlessly. Mercury, tin, copper, bismuth, zinc was claimed as all and none. Its oxide, known as pompolix or flowers of zinc, entered ointments for ulcers long before Gaubius introduced it internally for spasms and digestion. From Shoemaker's epilepsy, cure to academic analysis, zinc marked the transition from alchemical speculation to chemical medicine. If exploring forgotten knowledge and ancient ideas matters to you, you're welcome to join us by liking and subscribing. Thanks for listening.